there's fraud on the court stairs where you say you're on cases that you were never retained to be on, and have funds ask for funds to be released to you from these people who lost their homes, and you cash in on it. You should be ashamed of yourself right now. This case, this is going to be John Scott McDonald, case number 24CR 071877. Defendant is present at liberty. This is an arrest warrant return, and this request from the state, or excuse me, from the defense is for an OR walk. State, good morning.
Good morning. Your Honor, can I respond orally? I didn't
Yes.
have the opportunity to return. So we've reviewed the information provided by the defense. We understand that this individual has had a lifetime of connections to Los Angeles Valley, and he was an attorney here in good standing for quite a long time until his fraud was uncovered. And I understand that as a result of those connections that perhaps he isn't a flight risk, or maybe the court might find out. Nevertheless, given the crimes that did occur here with people who could ill afford it, people who had already lost their homes to foreclosure, the state is actually going to request a $250,000 bail with travel restrictions outside of Clark County. We requested this defendant be required to remain in Clark County. I don't know if the court can satisfy that type of request through the return of a passport or through some sort of PCU level so that at least we can keep track of him, but that's the state's request today. I know that this court has reviewed the paperwork.
I have.
And our arguments are not going to belabor those points. The court can clearly see that the fraud scheme was uncovered when this defendant found a victim who had another lawyer. And it was that other lawyer who realized that there was an issue. And when that other lawyer confronted this defendant and indicated that he did not truly represent these homeowners and that his request for the extra money from their foreclosure was invalid, he asked that lawyer to let it go. He didn't acknowledge at that point that there was a problem here. He didn't say, sorry, my fault. He asked him to let it go. And after that occurred, after the bar was involved, after that lawyer went through and looked and saw what other types of houses there were and talked to other victims, that's realistically when the fraud scheme was uncovered. The LVMPD came involved after that, and as a result of that investigation, learned that over $1 million of excess mortgage funds were stolen by this defendant. And through an analysis of their bank accounts, it wasn't from gambling or from some sort of drug problem. It was greed. They were lining the coffers of their house, buying expensive furniture, building a mansion when these people had lost their homes to foreclosure. So the reason the state's requesting such a high bail under Chapter NRS 178 is based on three factors. Does this defendant pose a danger to the people? And yes, I submit that this defendant is disbarred, so the likelihood that this continued conduct could occur is diminished. But I don't know what this defendant is doing for work. So I think at least at that, we should have that question for this court. Another question is, will he return to court? And I submit that that question also is in line with the third question, which is whether or not the likelihood of conviction is high. I think we need to be clear that in Nevada, these are crimes. Stealing people's money when they already lost their home, it's a crime. And the likelihood of conviction is high. Besides the fact that the defendant did acknowledge some of those factors to the state bar, we do in fact have him on record in front of Judge Gall holding that. We have him talking to Mr. Connell, indicating that of course he did do that with that person. So I would submit to the court that at least the likelihood of conviction is high. And since there are substantial penalties for taking almost $1 million, the state is concerned that this defendant could pose a flight risk. So I understand he has had lifelong ties here. We submit that that is true. I mean, you can see that he had a decades-long career here in Southern Nevada, but the harm to our community was great. And I would ask this court for a $250,000 bail with travel restrictions outside of Clark County, however the court feels that we can accomplish that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wright or Ms. Levy, who's arguing?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Is he a flight risk? He's lived here more than 50 years, has no criminal history whatsoever, has 7 siblings, 5 of them live here in Las Vegas. He's been divorced for a second time after these events occurred, which occurred in the past. And he lives presently with his 88-year-old mother in Summerlin. he has known of this investigation for months. When it came to light and was publicized, he went, Rob Bear, who represented him with the bar, and then he surrendered his license. He's presently working and is employed as a law clerk. His employer is here in the courtroom. Knowing all of this, of the investigation, he's been in contact with the detective through counsel. The detective has kept us apprised of the investigation. And the detective told us that once he appeared in court, if it was allowed, he could go to Metro and do the walkthrough and look.
So you've been in contact with a detective who obviously didn't arrest him, right? Because there must have been some sort of trust established that he was going to show up to court with you, which in fact he has. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Is the detective here today?
It was Mr. Haynes. He's out of town this week,
Okay.
but that's everything he just said is that.
All right, all right. And you're saying the detective told you that if the court was willing to allow him to leave here and process outside of the jail to get,
Correct.
when I say process, we all know booking,
Correct,
that he's the one that told you about that. Okay,
correct.
go ahead.
And in email exchanges, because he kept us surprised as to when the case would be submitted. Gave us information about it, asked us if we could provide any information.
All right,
And some limited information was provided. But I don't dispute the seriousness of the offense and the accusation about what went on. But it was a crime of opportunity through the employment that he had been as an attorney, which he no longer is and doesn't. And he does have 5 adult children. Aside from his siblings, his adult children all are supportive of him. He has the family contact. He is definitely not a flight risk, known all this, and has come into court. And he's really not a danger to the community in any fashion. And that's why a release on his first moment of confidence is more than appropriate.
all right, sir. I mean, it goes a long way with the court that you've been in contact, or your attorneys have been in contact with the detective involved with this case, that you showed up to court because you're facing, I mean, you might end up in prison on this. I don't know. Depends on what district court does. So that definitely goes into the decision. I'm sure your attorneys have spoken to you about the purpose of bail. You referenced the statute. I'm going to rely on Valdez Jimenez in accordance, and also with that statute. Okay. The main thing for bail is to make sure you show up to court and to protect the community. You're here today. Again, that goes a long way, because if there's any incentive to run, you certainly had it before coming to court today. You're facing numerous felonies, and the likelihood of conviction, from what I read, is pretty high. I mean, there's filed documents where you can put, there's fraud on the court stairs where you say you're on cases that you were never retained to be on, and have funds ask for funds to be released to you from these people who lost their homes, and you cash in on it. You should be ashamed of yourself right now. These people of all, it's just, I can't fathom. But what made him so dangerous was his position as an attorney, to be able to go into court, to be able to file paperwork, to be able to lie to the court, to be able to ask the court to release funds to him with the understanding he's going to release it back to people who have lost their homes. And it was all a lie, at least from what I read. But he's no longer an attorney. He can't do that anymore. He's disbarred, and he should have been. But at the end of the day, state's requesting $250,000. I mean, that's the case, quite frankly, those charges that we give to sex offenders, deservedly so, and sometimes higher. What makes this case so offensive is what I just said. I mean, you took from people who are as low as can be, and you spent it for what? Greed? You get a fancy house, and now look where you are. You don't have a job, and you're living with your mom. I want to get these people paid at the end of the day, state. And I don't think he's ever going to be able to pay them what he took. But I know if he's on custody on a $250,000 bill, he's not going to be making it. And sometimes it's hard to be a judge because what I want to do and what I have to do sometimes are two different things. Because there's part of me that wants to just put you in because of what you did is so offensive, what you're accused to have done. But that's not consistent with what the law is. And I took an oath and I'm going to follow the law. He has a low risk to flee, as far as I can tell. And there's nothing to indicate that he's a danger to the community because what made him a danger was the job that he lost because of what he did. Now he's a law clerk. And so I don't find clear and convincing means there's no least restrictive alternative. But what I am going to do is remand him into custody today so he can get booked. And I'm going to put him on mid-level house arrest. Then Metro can watch you and your attorneys can continue to work the case. You're in excellent hands with your attorneys, state. Thank you for your arguments. I certainly understand. But because of Valdez Jimenez, I cannot comply with your request, okay?
Thank you for hearing us.
I think it's a fair result. You're gonna be booked into custody today, sir.
Your Honor, can I just ask, is it the PCU or does he have to wait for house arrest?
He's gonna wait to house arrest, but they have bracelets. He'll be good. All right? All right, and that will keep them here. I think that's more than fair. Thank you, everybody. Sir,
Thank you very
get
much.
remanded into custody.
Do you want to do a
Yes, what do you guys want for court dates?
What?
As far as the prelim date, what's the ordinary course?
November 20th? Now, I want to warn you, that's the week prior to Thanksgiving. I don't know, I just tell you that because if you guys have, I can go after that if y'all want.
Yes,
After?
yes.
Okay,
Early
what-
December?
sure. What about December 5th, Thursday?
Is that good?
You want to do that?
December
All right, and if you think it's gonna go, let me know because we'll put it on a special set if I have to, okay?
Okay.
Because I envision this will take some time. Everybody, it was wonderful to see everyone, okay? Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, officer.